Hey guys, Jared with HOA Crusades here to talk about the heaven and hell that is living in an HOA. So we're going to talk about the pros and the cons, the good with the bad, and some of the ways that HOAs are fantastic and other ways that they are pretty miserable to be in. That way you can know whether you're thinking of buying in an HOA or you already live in one, you can appreciate all aspects, the good with the bad that comes along with that type of living situation. So we're going to go through the heaven first, the pros. The first thing that makes an HOA kind of like a little paradise or oasis, if these are the type of things you're into, is one, fewer bad neighbors. Generally, HOAs have rules, restrictions, and covenants that prohibit people from doing wild and crazy things. So if you live on your own property and you have any amount of land, your next door neighbor could do any number of things with their property that could be really annoying to you. Maybe like you have a family and little kids and they're shooting guns in the backyard and that makes you uncomfortable. Or they don't take care of their landscaping and their landscaping is always overgrown and looking crazy. They're throwing parties late at night and really just doing things that are a nuisance to you and the neighbors, hoarding junk cars in the front yard. There could be all sorts of things. So with an HOA, a lot of the structure of the HOA will prohibit those types of things from happening. And so they do serve a purpose in that sense. Property values are generally more stable in an HOA. Why? Because you're able to control a lot of different things like the deterioration of the common elements, right? You have things in place to replace certain structures, repaint, reside, re-roof. The landscaping's taken care of for everybody. There's certain things that will enhance a property's value or stabilize a property's value over the long term that are kind of forced onto an HOA, whereas private homes or private residences that aren't located in an HOA don't really benefit from. The other thing is financial stability. In an HOA, you generally have a management company and a board of directors. And if that management company is doing their job well, they're going to make sure that the HOA is properly funded and budgeted long term, which means that everybody's putting in $20 a month, towards the roof that's going to come due in 10 years or 20 years, or $10 a month to the siding that's going to be due in 10 years. You have financial stability because you're planning ahead for expenses that your average regular homeowner isn't going to think of. I don't know how many homeowners do you know that are putting away $20 a month for the roof that's going to happen, in 20 years? Not many. So what happens is when it's time for a new roof or it's time for new siding or new windows or new doors or whatever the case is, most homeowners are going to have to go get a loan for that to try to get that work done. In an HOA, all that stuff is budgeted and planned for. When it's time to go get that roof done, hopefully there's money in the reserve account to get it done. And if there's not, then the management or the board hasn't been doing their job properly. But in a perfect world, all of these things are accounted for and budgeted for, and it's being managed and run effectively. Next thing, rules and regulations. If you are the type of person who likes order and structure and uniformity, then you will love the rules and regulations in an HOA. They're in place to make sure that everybody's doing what they need to do, that all the front yards look the same, that everybody's house looks like it fits, that nobody's doing anything crazy. And for people who get comfort and feel safety out of structure and uniformity, they really gravitate towards these types of environments. Now, if you're the type of person who's kind of like a free spirit, you're very independently minded and you want to do your own thing and you don't want anybody to tell you no, then an HOA just probably isn't for you. Like, just don't ever buy or move into an HOA. It's not your thing. Okay. We have different types of people, different personalities in this world. So there's some people that really get a deep sense of security from knowing that there's rules and regulations and there's this code and there's order. We're all sticking to this. And if we have a disagreement, we can go to the documents, the legal documents, and we can see where it is in black and white and how we're supposed to deal with this issue. And if you're that type of person, HOAs are great. Architectural control. Sometimes it's really annoying when someone buys a plot of land next to you, knocks down the house and builds some mega mansion. And now there's this mega mansion next to you. Or conversely, they knock down the house and they build a tiny home next to you. And now there's a bunch of regular sized homes with a tiny home. Or they paint their house pink. Or they put a pool like right on the front curb and it's just like super obnoxious looking. You're like, why did you do that? So there's all sorts of things that can really be annoying architecturally and structurally if your neighbors start doing them and now their house looks out of place relative to the rest of the neighborhood. And there's a lot of free spirits in this world who like to do what they want to do. And if that scares you or annoys you, then an HOA is great because there is architectural control. Everything has to look the same. This goes back to what we talked about earlier. And if that's the type of thing you're into, an HOA might be the type of situation that is perfect for you. Community engagement. So community engagement is a really cool part of being in an HOA. If you want to have a nice communal environment with your neighbors and get to know your neighbors and have kind of a built-in social network and friend group, then an HOA might be great. Many times there's a common area, a clubhouse, a common pool that everybody goes to. And we've seen some really cool friendships develop, some cool discussions happen, some cool relationships built via those avenues that are kind of accessible in an HOA. There's this group that always meets up at the clubhouse or by the pool. They start to walk their dogs together and have dinner on the weekends. If you're the type of person that community is important to you and a good friend group is important to you, then an HOA kind of has that built into it if you choose to take advantage of it. And if that's something you're looking for, you can certainly have more access to that in an HOA. Which brings us to our next thing, which is amenities. Many HOAs are built around a central amenity. So there's a lot of people with common interests in this world. Let's say you're a golf person, or you're an avid skier or snowboarder. Let's say you love the beach. There's entire communities built around these types of amenities. HOAs on private beaches, HOAs on the side of the ski resort, HOAs on a golf course, right? If you're an avid golfer and you want greater access to golf and you buy a house that's on a golf course, that's perfect for you. And now you're surrounded by other people who are probably into that same activity. And this goes back to our last thing, which was community engagement. So now you have this social network around this activity, this community fun thing that is a huge part of your life. And there's other like-minded people around you. You have a greater access to that amenity because you're all pooling your resources to utilize that amenity, and you can have greater access than you would otherwise. And then finally, maintenance. We're talking about the general day-to-day maintenance, like, just making sure that the gutters are clear and that the landscaping's been done and everything looks presentable, as well as the long-term big ticket maintenance items, windows, doors, siding, roofs, repaving, all of those things. If you own a home and you need your driveway repaved, you have to come up with whatever it is, 10 grand, 20 grand to have that done when the time comes. Same with a roof, same with siding. And there's nobody telling you this is the interval that this should be done in. So you kind of got to figure it out. And sometimes these things go past when they're due. And then you're taking out a big loan to try to cover the costs of some of these issues. Nobody's telling you when to clean your dryer vents or requiring you to inspect your fireplaces or all this stuff. So being in an HOA is kind of like a safety net in that respect, where there are funds that are being budgeted or allocated towards those long-term future expenses. There is some kind of structure in place telling you when you have to repair or maintain certain features or items within your home. There's just a greater level of accountability and budgeting in place. So if that's not your thing, then a good management company or good board of directors can help you be more successful. Now we move on to how an HOA can be a hell. That's pretty easy because if you go on any kind of social media or Reddit, most of what people have to say about HOAs is really negative. Everyone hates their HOA. It seems, right? Like you never hear anybody talk well of an HOA or a management company, and we get that. So the first is association dues. They can be expensive. They can change from one year to the next. They can be expensive relative to what you think you have to pay for. A lot of people don't realize that the dues are paying for like a master insurance policy. And in a condo complex, that's probably really expensive. If you have amenities or a pool or there's any high risk or big liability type item, the master insurance policy could make up 20 to 40% of your total budget for the year, depending on what association you're in. It also covers landscaping. It also covers maintenance and repairs. And then if they didn't budget accurately or adequately, or they don't have enough saved, then they could special assess you, which is another due, and it's expensive and it comes all at once. And it's super infuriating to be a part of when you're on the receiving end of that. A bad HOA board can make your life a hell, a living hell in an HOA. Get one or two people that are just unreasonable, or they get a little bit of power and it goes to their head, and now they are on a mission and they are just terrorizing everybody, and they're out there with the clipboard and the magnifying glass and just looking for any reason to violate and disrupt someone's life. If you get a bunch of board members like that, your life will be pretty miserable. It's not to say that you can't get them all kicked out and replace them. You can, but while it's going on, it's not fun. Bad HOA management company. This is a big one. We see this all the time. So many times. I mean, out of all our associations, like most of them, when they get to us, as just one horror story after the next, either embezzlement or theft, or the management company hasn't been answering calls. People wait 2 months for a call back from the management company. There's outstanding maintenance issues. There's flooding in people's units every time it rains and nobody's getting back to them. Like, a bad management company can make your life hell and can dramatically decrease your property value. So one association that we took over, within 2 years of us managing them, they went from a single bedroom unit in that complex was going for like $65,000 when we took over. By the time we were done, it was going for like $135,000, $140,000. And that's like over 100% appreciation. Whereas relative to the rest of the market in that area had like 40% appreciation during COVID. And this association had 100% appreciation. That difference, that delta from the norm, is as a result of good management versus bad management. Rules and regulations, they can be unreasonable. People can be unreasonable. People can have different ideas of what's appropriate and acceptable than you. So sometimes the rules and regulations will be super annoying to you, and people can enforce them either unreasonably or inconsistently or ineffectively. It can make your life miserable. It can make it like you're living in a living hell. Usually, a lot of times when you hear the horror stories, they revolve around the rules and regulations and getting fined or called to hearings as a result of breaking those. All right, liens and foreclosures. This is a big deal. Your life can get turned upside down very, very quickly, and your life can be ruined by these processes. If you just have a private home in a regular neighborhood that's not in an HOA, you can still get a lien and be foreclosed on, but it's either by two people. It's either by the bank that you have a note with for that property. If you stop paying them, they can put a lien on your house and foreclose on it. Or if you don't pay your taxes, then your municipality, your city, your town, whoever can come and put a lien on your house and take it away from you. In an HOA, there's a whole nother layer to that usually gets invoked sooner than the other two. If you stop paying your HOA dues, the HOA can put a lien on your house and foreclose on you. If you break enough rules or violate enough things and you get called to hearings and then you get fined and you don't pay those fines, and if you owe a lot of money to the HOA from fines or back dues, they can put a lien on your property and foreclose on your property. And that will happen probably sooner than the town or the bank would if one of those things were to happen. Nosy neighbors. Nosy neighbors are very annoying, and they're everywhere. In an HOA, you're just kind of all closer together. You got nosy neighbors in all parts of the world. You got neighbors who are up in your business and looking out their window and trying to figure out what you're doing with your life. But in an HOA, it kind of lends itself to it more. All the units are closer together. Probably can see into the person next door's house in many cases. I know one unit in one of our HOAs, every time I'm just walking through the common areas, doing my evaluation on a monthly basis, and there's a unit owner, he hears me walking down the steps and he opens his door and just stares at me. You get people like that all the time. Like, people just don't want to mind their own business. They're always looking and seeing what's going on. So that can be tough. And if they get on the board, it's even worse, because now they feel their job is to enforce the rules, and they're naturally nosy. So they're just sticking their nose into everything, trying to violate people and then fine them. Special assessments. Special assessments are awful. Special assessment is indicative that sometime in the past, the HOA did not manage its money well, and now you have this big thing that you guys have to pay for that you don't have the money for. That's a special assessment. And that can be anywhere from a couple extra $100 a month to $90,000. We've seen some Reddit stories where an HOA special assesses every unit owner $90,000 and gives them like 6 months to come up with it. That can bankrupt someone. That can legitimately bankrupt an individual. So special assessments are really tough. For many years, a lot of people are trying to just pay as low HOA dues as possible, and that leaves them in a position where they have to come up with all the money at once down the road at some point, or they've got to get a loan, or whatever the case is. And when that happens, it can be tragic. So, if you are in an HOA, keep an eye on how things are run, keep an eye on the books, on the budgets, because that will prevent a lot of the heartache and headache that happens due to poor financial management and special assessments. And that's basically it. I'm sure we could come up with more stuff, but I think that covers it pretty well. There's a lot of great things to appreciate about an HOA, but there's also plenty of reasons why an HOA can be not a fun scenario for you. And if you are in one of those scenarios, we want to help you get out of those scenarios. And a lot of times it just boils down to education and good management and a good board. And we can teach you how to get or change any and all of those three things so that your experience can be better and so that you can really benefit and thrive from all the good things HOAs have to offer and know how to protect yourself or navigate out of the hells that can be created when you have a lot of uneducated or unmotivated unit owners, and the few people who are motivated are wielding their power in an inappropriate way. We're here to help you with that. And if you like that, or that resonates with you, like and subscribe to this channel, because that's what we're all about. We're all about making your HOA experience better. We'll catch you next time. Thanks again. This is Jared with HOA Crusades. We'll talk to you later.